Yo, welcome to my first video on Ashes of Creation. I want to start with something that I know about, which is the fighter class. I'm gonna make a guide about it. Now, ideally, I'd be able to connect to Lotharia, which is the main server where my main character right now is, but there's a massive queue of 150 people. So I'm gonna have to choose some random server and go from a level 1 character. Now that should still be fine to explain the class, the concept, how I see it, how it performs, the different combos that you can make. I'm gonna make a really quick character. I literally don't care about anything but the class. We're gonna choose fighter. We're gonna call it fighter, okay, just to go quick. And I'm gonna spawn on the new part because I haven't even checked it on my new character. So yeah, let's just go. I just need to be able to see the skills, to explain the combos, how the skill works, etc, etc. Now, how do I see fighter? I'm gonna give a disclaimer. I think currently fighter is weak, and it has been weak. This is not the first time I played the game. I played it like 1 year ago with a 110, 120 euro key. I was a main fighter. I like the concept of fighter. I think it's not being represented correctly in the game, sadly, but I have hopes for it in the future. So what is fighter? Fighter is your standard bruiser in any game. What is a bruiser? Bruiser is a character that combines DPS with tankiness. Obviously, it's not going to be as tanky as, for example, a tank. And obviously, won't have enough. Oh my god, look at the chat. They're already starting with the gold selling bullshit. Like it's a fucking alpha. It's insane. And you will not have enough damage as a longbow, mage, etc, etc. But you're combining both, so you're a bit of everything, and I really like that playstyle, plus it's a melee class. I always, in these types of game, play melee. I just like melee a lot, so yeah. Now, the issue is currently I think it's underperforming. It comes to two issues. One, extremely high TTK for an MMO. I don't know why the TTK is so fast. You have like 10 skills, you have different combos, combinations, and the truth is you end up using 3 skills to one-shot the enemy. Whether you're rogue, mage, or anything, sadly, it always ends up like that. The other issue is hyper mobility. So you have rolls, you have jumps, you have bows that you can use. So like you can do, wait, I need stamina. But then you have blinks with the mage, you have traps that reduce movement speed with the archer while you're dodging and running backwards. Like you can do this move, for example, to disengage from an enemy, which is you jump, roll, you can cover lots of distances. Keep in mind, this is a character level 1. If we go into stamina, you get like way more movement speed, etc. So I think it's a bit overtuned, the mobility. I think it should be slightly reduced, not to the point where it feels like like you're extremely slow, but slightly. And I think TTK needs to reduce drastically. So classes like the fighter, because if you check the fighter on their webpage, if you check the core of the fighter skills, is you have lots of damage, but you have self-sustain. Now the issue is the self-sustain. So okay, the description they give you is the more you're involved in fight, the more you fight, the more you stay alive in the fight, the better your character performs. Versus, for example, a mage, which is like you do a huge damage rotation of skills and then you need to cool off for a second, to chill for cooldowns. Fighter is you want to be hitting, getting hit. Now, the current meta benefits a lot the mage, because the truth is with one rotation of combos, he's going to destroy you, so there's no sustain that's going to let you survive that, okay? So that's the main issue. I think if those two things are tuned down, that's a funny character. I think if those two things are addressed a bit, fighter, tank, melee classes will be way more suitable for PvP. Many guilds right now are just only looking for like, sure, some tanks, but mainly DPS, range DPS classes, because they are the meta. Another issue I have is, I don't have a bow. Yes, I have a bow. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm playing nothing screams harder than a balance. The fact that I'm playing a melee class, and if I want to be competitive, I gotta use more my bow than my melee sword. The damage is pretty similar. I have the range advantage, so even if there's a sword hit slightly higher, it doesn't matter, because all the time that I have with the bow to hit is extra DPS that adds up. And the fact that the sword, for example, hits AoE doesn't matter. People split apart, hyper mobility, you cannot really stick to the enemies, extremely hard. So yeah, I think they need to address some of those issues I mentioned. Apart from that, I think that's pretty much about it about the class overall. Now I'm gonna go through the skill system in the game for the fighter. Then I'm gonna go over the weapons, my recommendation picks, and that's pretty much gonna be the guide. Sadly, I cannot show much more because again, my main character is literally on a massive queue, so not much more I can do with it. Let's move into skills. Okay, so here we have the fighter archetype. This character or archetype is pretty, like, it has pretty much a bit of everything. You have damage, you have AoE damage, you have crowd control, you have 3 different stances that you need to play around that give you different buffs. Now, again, for example, the stances. It'd be good if the PvP system would let me, depending on the situation, choose one or the other. The truth is you're gonna end up using one at most 2, because fights are going so quickly, so fast, people get killed so fast that you don't really get to, like, you know, in this frame of 10 seconds I use this stance for like certain circumstances, and in the next 10 seconds I switch to another one, and then, for example, I'm trying to heal up because I'm wounded, so I choose the form of fluidity plus the blood fusion, so I heal myself from where I'm hitting, plus have increased evasion to dodge the enemy hits, so, you know, it kind of helps me tank a bit more, and doesn't happen, you get one shot, it is what it is, okay? So let's start with the skills. I'm gonna first go over the skills that I consider core to this class. That doesn't mean it's the only ones you're gonna use, but it's the ones that are mostly used. Blitz, must have. Brutal Cleave, really useful. Lethal Blow, the same. Maim, the same. Cataclysm, Lip Strike, and Blood Fusion. That, for me, I'd say is the core of the build and probably the most useful skills. Now, when I'm saying this, it doesn't mean that there's some, for example, Berserk increases a lot your damage, that's really good, you know, or Whirlwind, this deals a lot of damage in AoE. For PvP, for PvE is really good, but this is a guide I'm gonna focus in more towards PvP. So you have pretty much a rush, so what it does is from a really long distance, and it doesn't care about elevation, which, and it's really huge in terms of mobility. You select the target and you will blink or, well, dash instantly to the target, okay? So it's pretty useful, is a must-have for any PvP and PvE build, honestly. Lethal Blow, so this skill pretty much what it does is, if the enemy is bleeding, how do you get the bleeding, you may ask? For example, you get it from Form of Ferocity. You can get bleeding from the weapon perks, but the main source is going to be your Form of Ferocity. What are forms? 3 different stages that you can get, you can control which one you want. Form of Ferocity gives you 1.5% attack speed per 10 combat momentum, and your Brutal Cleave and Overpower will apply bleeding on the enemy. Now, what are those? Brutal Cleave is the, I mean, they are not the normal auto attack, but are the pretty basic skills. This is the AoE one, and then you have another one, which is this one, which is single target. So if you're in Form of Ferocity and you use one of those, you will apply a bleeding on the enemy, but then you can combo with Lethal Blow, and as we will see with other skills. Second form is Form of Fluidity. You increase your evasion chances and disable the evasion chances of the enemy, as well as applying Shaken to the target's hit. Shaken, physical defense reduced by 15%. So it's really good. But you will see when we talk about combos, why most of the times in PvP you will actually be using the third one, Form of Celerity. So pretty much it gives you movement speed. I mean, it's kind of okay to try to catch up the enemy. The truth is you cannot catch up just running towards the enemy with this, plus you need combat momentum. So the buff itself, I mean, maybe to disengage, but then to disengage you can use Fluidity to have more evasion, so the enemies trying to finish you off are gonna miss the hits. Because again, remember, shooting bows, for example, is literally like aimbot. Like, you cannot miss. I know the devs were considering adding like manual targeting. I think it's probably a good solution to nerf a bit the overpower creep of range weapons, but for now, currently, that's what you have. Now, the really crucial part of Form of Celerity is the Stagger. Okay, Stagger pretty much enters your a stage where you disable the enemy evasion by 25%. Now, this is not what makes this so strong, is the combos that you're gonna do, because if you stagger someone, then you can throw him on the ground. If you throw him on the ground, then you can deal, I mean, you pretty much can guarantee your hits plus arc hits that are hitting harder. So this is why it's so important. And in a really burst, high TTK game like this, which is right now currently, you pretty much blitz in, CC the enemy, apply stagger, drop on the ground, use cataclysms, use maim. You literally almost one-shot the enemy if you didn't, or just left him at like 1/4 of HP, which you can try to finish him off with the bow or with the leaf strike, or etc, etc. So this is why this form is so strong. It's not the buff per se. Like, I argue that the best buff is the form of fluidity, because evasion is really good, being able to ignore some hits. Attack speed will be good if you will be able to, in PvP, to stick to the enemy and get the benefit from that attack speed, but that's not the case. So yeah. Now, I already said that Blitz is one of the core things in the game. For the fighter, close gapper of always really important. This perk is really good, getting 20 combat momentum from the moment you engage the enemy. That gives you extra evasion, movement speed, attack speed. You will see that other skills consume combat momentum to be buffed, so really important. Same as this one, although this for me is not as much of a priority for PvP. For PvE this is really good, not for PvP, because for PvP you will not always be able to time out the lethal blow. Now, we already spoke about this skill dealing further damage based on the missing HP on the enemy, as well as increasing the critical hit chance if the enemy is bleeding or hemorrhaging. You will see that this is further down the line, another combo. And one of the perks is lethal blow returns 50% of overkill damage. I think this is important to take. You want to try to finish the enemy with this skill if possible, not always going to be the thing, but if the enemy is really low HP, you hit them with this, with the hemorrhaging, and it critically strikes. Even if you do overkill damage, it will heal you, or at least it used to. Like, keep in mind some of the information maybe sadly is outdated. I don't think so from what I've been experiencing, but it might be the case. You will heal that extra damage that you deal, and literally can almost like heal half your HP. So it's pretty good. Creeping blow. I mean, I think you have better options. This for PvE is useless, borderline. For PvP can be used, but I think you have better options that I will showcase. Weapon combo finishers apply 1 wounded stack. We'll see where you can get benefits from this. The issue is you're not really going to be taking many of these wounded things because you're running short on points. Whirlwind, really good for PvE, mid for PvP, because reduces your mobility a bit. If the enemy has some hands, we'll probably dodge it fairly easily, so I wouldn't say it's really good for PvP. For PvP, if you want to use this, you want to take which one is it? This one, okay, the one that applies stagger. This one is more for PvE because it lets you deplete your momentum and increase a bit the amount of time you can spin, but this one is better for PvP. So you do a final swing, it deals a bit more of damage, and you apply stagger, which again, we know stagger is important because then we can throw the enemy on the ground and increase our damage output. Another of the main skills, Rapture. So this is really important. Deals 50% physical damage and apply the buff to the target. While the buff is active, the target acquires 1 wounded stack per second while moving. This skill is the one that we care about, how many wounds we can apply on the enemy. After 5 seconds, the target takes another 150% physical damage plus 10% additional damage for each stack of wounded it has, up to a maximum total of 300 physical damage. It is a lot. On the initial hit, if the target is bleeding, 1 stack is consumed and the target becomes hemorrhaging. So you can see the combo. You go in with Blitz, with the Ferocity form, you do Brutal Cliff of the single target hit. Now the enemy target is bleeding, you're gonna use Rapture, because that bleeding, 1 stack of bleeding, is gonna be consumed and it's gonna turn into hemorrhaging. And then you can try to do, for example, 3 autos. So you apply another stack of bleeding and then you do lethal blow, or most of the times the combo, because again, sticking to your enemy is extremely hard in this game due to the hyper mobility. So you're probably gonna go with a lethal blow, which increases the critical hit chance because now the enemy is hemorrhaging and you have huge chances of really delivering a huge strike. Another really important, crucial skill is Maim. So this is pretty much burst damage. Perform a powerful melee strike in a short forward count, dealing 250% physical damage to all targets hits. Deals 20% additional damage to recently tripped targets. So we already can see one of the skills that benefits from that stagger, that gets turned into a trip, and that trip benefits from extra damage. Furthermore, You take this perk, really good. So you pretty much throw like a projectile in a forward corn. It deals 100% extra physical damage plus 20% additional damage to recently tripped targets to enemies in its path. So further damage benefits further if the enemy is tripped. So big W. Another we have is Lunging Assault. Now, every time you cast this costs 15 momentum. So as you can see, this costs mana, but this already starts costing momentum, which is not ideal because you would really want to keep the momentum up. You deal 100, it's like a really small dash. You deal 125 physical damage, which is not much, but you apply a snare. Now, a snare is a smart speed debuff of 25%, but I do believe you have better ways to apply this snare if you really want it. You get another charge, but now it costs 20 momentum. I used this when I was playing on the first alpha that I played. I found uses for it because again, hypermobility. This is a small dash, not as huge as the blitz, but it kind of helps you catch up a bit to those enemies. I don't think it's necessary, but if you're really struggling to stick to the enemy, it could give you that extra small dash to stay with them. Another one. Form of Fluidity. Form of Fluidity regenerates 0.01% of your maximum health per second and per weapon finisher for each point of combat momentum. So these are extra perks that you can get on your forms of thingies. I think the blue one is worth. So the blue one, again, I'd use it when you're really low HP. If you don't have, for example, a blood fusion, or even if you have it probably. The intention is you're going to increase a lot your evasion and you're going to try to regenerate a bit of HP to try to survive. This will be like my disengage go-to. If it's for PvE, I don't really think it's necessary. For PvE, you're probably better with Celerity. You're going to sometimes run out of mana with the fighter. This will help you offset that and have more uptime on hitting the enemy mobs. But for PvP, if I'm choosing one, is Fluidity. Now, another skill, Wallop. So this takes 8 mana, and this is really important skill. So you spend 25% of your current momentum to deal 150% physical damage, plus the momentum you spent. This is huge. Losing 25% current momentum is really huge, but I mean, you can see the numbers, it hits fairly hard. But now the important part. If the target is staggered, the effect is consumed and the target becomes tripped. So a combo for this, for example, you grab Blitz, in a Celerity form, rush in, Brutal Cliff single target, into Wallop, into Cataclysm, into Maim. You get trips from other places, but this is one of the opportunities. Now, Wallop restores a percentage of maximum health equal to 30% of combat momentum spent over 6 seconds. I think this is a good perk to take. I personally will take Wallop. I see use in this skill. I think this is worth it because, again, you're going to be burning combat momentum no matter what. If you're using this skill when you're low HP, it's going to give you an extra edge that's going to help you sustain further. Again, the issue with how fast the TTK is, whether this really is gonna, like, it's the typical thing where in text looks good and then in practice is not as good due to other circumstances, but I take it. Knockout, really, really important skill because this is an enable for you to do more extended combos. I'm going to explain why in a bit. So you apply Incapacitated, which is really important, cannot move or act. This effect breaks no on damage taken, and Shaken, further damage taken. 8 mana, low cooldown. This is really good skill. You pretty much CC the enemy. And I will showcase why this skill is important in a second. Next one, Battle Cry, apply Weaken and Demoralize to all nearby enemies. Now, the issue that I have with this skill is that it's like a defensive one. And the combo that it goes with is with an offensive skill. So this is like a 2-skill combo that is pretty, like, linear. So applies Weaken, physical speed, not defense reduce. So they attack slower. So it's like you're reducing the enemy DPS, and Demoralize, damage dealt reduced by 10% on the enemy. If you take this, it pretty much is a CC break from any CC that you may have. Now, the combo is, if you check the win at the bottom, it says deals 20% additional damage to weakened targets. So again, your combo, for example, with this will be a Leap Strike or Blitz into Battle Cry into Whirlwind. This kinda will be your AoE hard-hitting skill. You can combo it for a Blood Fusion. This will be like a nuke, kinda. So let's say you see like you're fighting in a, I don't know, 10 versus 10. 6 enemies group up, your team says to target them, you jump in with the blitz, you proc your blood fusion to stay alive because otherwise you're gonna get absolutely destroyed. Battle cry will win, you start spinning, you deal damage, then you try to proc your form of fluidity to have maximum evasions. That's why it's important to not take this, because if you take this you're gonna be running your momentum to 0, and then it doesn't matter that you take your form of fluidity, your momentum is gonna be 0, you're not gonna have evasion. So again, you want to have those evasions up, and then you try to disengage, regroup with your team, and re-engage again. But again, as I'm saying, this is all theory of how the class in theory, from my understanding, should work. Another thing is the applicability on the game with the current circumstances. So yeah, now we're gonna go with the final skills. First one I'm gonna go over is Blood Fusion. This is a must-have for your build. This is your self-sustain, is extremely strong, or at least it was before. Return 100% of damage dealt as health and 50% of damage dealt as mana over the next 6 seconds. 25% additional damage return as health from bleeding targets. This bonus is doubled against hemorrhaging targets. So this is really benefiting you. Do you know the Whirlwind combo I said? You engage with Form of Ferocity, and now you add an extra step. Blitz into Brutal Cliff, you hit several targets, now all those targets have bleeding. Into Battle Cry, Ferocity, Blitz, Fusion, Brutal Cliff for the the bleeding, into Battle Cry, into Whirlwind, and then you switch to Form of Fluidity and you try to disengage. Okay, I really like about this game that all these combos are being able to be done, but I feel they get offset by the fast TTK. You know, like if you try to press too many keys at once, you're getting killed before you can. The perk, I take it, when Blood Fusion is activated while below 50% health, gain 20% increased damage mitigation. So again, you're becoming a bit like a super tank. It's like your final stand, you know, like you're self-healing. You're burning all your things to like do that final hit. Another really important thing, Cataclysms. And here is where we get into, or probably, I dare to say, the highest hitting combo. I mean, it's debatable because you can split this class into 2 combos. So you have your bleeding combos, which is the Rapture into Lethal Blow, and then you have your hard, like your AoE hard CC combos, which is with Cataclysms, Lip Strike, and Maim. So yeah, Cataclysms, you deal 275% physical damage and apply Shaken. Remember, Shaken is defense reduction, so next hit is gonna hit harder. More important, if the target is staggered, the effect is consumed and the target becomes tripped. Deal 15% additional damage to chilled targets. This, you don't have access to this. It comes from mages, for example. A mage has an AoE skill that is freeze, so then you hit Cataclysms. Is this like combos with your team? So further increases the AoE damage that is taking the enemy. And Lip Strike, leap to a target location and deal 225% physical damage around you while applying stagger to the target hits. Apply 3 stacks of a snare to the target's hit that were shaken. Now, how's the combo for this? You're gonna do Lip Strike into Knockout. Now, why are you doing Lip Strike into Knockout rather than Lip Strike into Cataclysms? The issue is Cataclysms has a really slow animation time, so it's fairly easy to be dodged. That's where Knockout comes in. So you Lip Strike, you play the stagger, then you incapacitate the enemy so they cannot dodge, then you do Cataclysms into Maim, because again, there will be stagger from the Lip Strike, you will benefit from the stagger by tripping the enemy, and this skill deals more damage on tripped enemies. But this will be kind of your like AoE type of thing. Let's see a massive combo, okay? So for this form, initially I'd probably go with Ferocity or Fluidity. So what you want, because again, we don't care about the stagger from Celerity because we're already getting it from Lip Strike, okay? So we Lip Strike, we do Knockout, we do Cataclysms. At some point in the middle, we put Blood Fusion to sustain ourselves. We do the main combo, we do Battle Cry, and we do Whirlwind. And that way you combine those 2 items. By that time, you're probably benefiting from the defensiveness of Battle Cry and Blood Fusion because you're increasing you're reducing the damage that the enemy is dealing, you're self-sustaining yourself, and every single hit with Whirlwind, which is AoE, is healing you through that skill, which is really important. And now, if you want to add one more skill, although this is the full burst build of the fighter and where it's like you're fully committed, which is Berserk. consume your combat momentum rapidly. It goes really down fast. Now, I gotta say, it's not extremely fast because... So here comes again the hypermobility of the game. When you hit, you generate combat momentum. When you consume Berserk, you lose combat momentum. But if you're constantly hitting, the consumption is offset a bit by the generation. Now, eventually you will run out of it, but it takes way lower. Now, if the enemy disengages you, you literally go to 0 almost instantly. So you get 30% more physical power and movement speed, and you're immune to CC, which is really huge to develop your further combos, okay? The extra perk is that you reduce the cooldown of all your other abilities by 0.25. So with this skill, you have two options. You have the hard engage at the start, so pretty much you proc it when you're doing your leap strike into knockout, into cataclysm, into maim for the further damage, or you're doing all this combo and then you're proccing Berserk so you can reset the cooldowns on those skills and re-engage again another target. Again, this is a bit on you, on the situation on when you're PvPing, but that's how the skill, let's say, work. Finally, Art of War, switching from forms no longer triggers cooldowns or costs combat momentum. I don't think this is extremely valuable because, again, in many PvP instances, the fights will be over so fast that you will not really have to be you won't be switching like ferocity to, you know, like you won't be doing ferocity into celerity, into fluidity, into ferocity. No, you maybe switch 2 times, 3 times, you know. So, but I'd still probably take it. Just, you know, having high combat momentum gives you evasion, movement speed or attack speed. Attack speed is a bit more niche on PvP, but the evasion is really good. That for me is it for the skills. I really like the kit. I just, you know, the game I think doesn't really let it shine yet through other mechanism, but yeah. Now, weapons. I don't know if the meta has changed. It might have, but I'm still using what I understand to be the best, or what used to be the meta, which is, I mean, you use a greatsword. Now I know there are some other weapons like a 200 mace and like a spear or something like that. I think you can use it with the fighter, but I'm gonna go with this greatsword and then a short bow. Short bow is better than longbow, or at least it used to be. Now, Rusty Sword. On the first one, we're gonna choose Wound. Sorry, that's bleed. Wound. Why? Look, if your intention is to place snares by hitting deadly finishers throughout attacks to the enemy in PvP, that's already not happening, I'm telling you, okay? You like, greatsword works like this. You can check it here. 3rd hit is a finisher, 4th hit, if you have the chances, is a deadly finisher, which is what applies this, the snare. So my recommendation is go with Wounded. Why? If it gets to the point where you can actually give 4 out attacks on the enemy, I think the wound, like first, already that person probably is stunned or AFK, but still the wounded will help you with rupture damage. The snare won't really be needed if you manage to hit 4 times an enemy with melee attacks. From these perks, I recommend you take the trigger chance. Again, it's so rare that you're gonna be able to pull this off in PvP, that if you do, it better procs, okay? The damage output from doing all this combo is not that huge. Penetration, I think it was the meta before, I'm not sure if it is anymore. I don't think this is really worth it. So although the damage of the finisher and deadly finisher damage is increased, your biggest main source of damage is skills, not auto attack. So I think you're just playing the weapons to try to get the debuffs to synergize with your skills. We're gonna move into this other one. Weapon proc duration, really important. So if you manage to play a wound, it will last longer. Here we're gonna take ward. Personally, is what I recommend. If you're doing PvE, you can take mana. Again, like what is this? Like even if you manage to proc a critical strictions with your finishers or extended finishers, like it's not that much damage, so for me it's not really worth it. This gives you 5% blockchain base, which I think is underrated, plus grants a temporary health equal to 1% of your maximum health for 10 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. Yeah, sure, it's not huge, but I consider it better than the other ones. Mana for PvE, pretty much. Here, the meta before was penetration. I think maybe disable power, or where's the other one? Here, crit evasion could be the thing. I'm not really sure on this one. Penetration, you probably won't go wrong with it, but maybe the min-max thing is one of the others. And yeah, we're taking all these the increasing effects, really important. Same for those two perks, are the same ones as I mentioned. And here again, we're going to take another wound. Why are we taking another wound? Same concept. If you hit 4 auto attacks on an enemy, he's already CC'd or slowed, so you don't really need to further slow him. We're gonna apply slows to the enemy, but it's gonna come from the bow, not from the sword. Bleed will be fine, it's some extra DPS, but I prefer the wound to synergize with the other one. Plus again, there's healers everywhere, healers heal hard, reducing that extra healing from the wound. It's really valuable in my opinion. We're gonna go again with extra chance to get it, and then one final point in the damage increase. For the final one here, we're gonna take the first one, which is further chances of increase. So pretty much we're trying to guarantee that we're gonna be able to apply the wounds. This gives you more some base damage, which that's actually substantial, but again, very likely that you do it. I wouldn't count on dealing damage through that. Inner Fire, honestly, not bad. Gives you health regeneration, mana regeneration, stamina regeneration. For PvE, really good. For PvP, probably my second pick. The thing is, the values are too low, so not like this is gonna make you extremely tanky. So I'd go with the extra chances of wounding the enemy. For peaks, I think it's the right side one, if I remember correctly. Okay, this applies Shaken, which is a good debuff. Yeah, so let me see. No, okay. If you're doing single PvP, go right side, take the Shaken. If you manage to apply the 4 hits, then you reduce the physical defense of the enemy by 15%. But if you're playing in groups, I think it's better go to from the left side. You get 15% attack speed for yourself, but then you're buffing your group. Okay, actually you get 15% attack speed, 15% base damage, and then you can apply this to group members within 35 meters, which I think is really good. And if I remember correctly, you still get to apply 1 point here, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, these two I really like. Now, moving into the short bow. Here is where we start taking snares. Why? Most of the engagements you're gonna do currently in this iteration is gonna be with bow on hand. So your intention is you're gonna try to apply snares to reduce the enemy movement speed, and then you're gonna engage them with the skills of the greatsword, like blitz, etc. If the enemy is slowed, it guarantees slightly to you that you're gonna be able to apply your combo better. So we're gonna choose a snare. I personally keep choosing chances. Again, I wanna I'm not trying to kill the enemy without attacks. You know, like, I'm killing the enemy through skill, so I prefer to make sure that the enemy is getting slowed so I can apply my combo better. That's my personal choice. You might debate that, for example, for the bow, I'd see viable, for example, to increase the damage, because it's easier to apply those 4 or 5 extra normal attacks. But I still prefer the trigger chance. Here the same that I said for the greatsword. Again, duration for me, way better than extra damage. Chance, once more. Another snare, I prefer slows over bleeds from the bow. And then here is important that you go the left side. So deadly finishers and deadly extended finishers empower your next ability. Deadly finishers or deadly extended finishers use within the next 5 seconds with 25% critical strike. Now the important thing is that you can comp this, or at least you used to be able to mix this with your greatsword skills. It doesn't need to be a bow skill. So you pretty much shoot the enemy, and then, for example, you leap strike, not blitz. It's better to leap strike with the AoE strike, and now it benefits from this critical strike chance. Bullseye now, which is this one, stacks up to 2 times, so now you have a 50% critical strike chance, and it even applies as an AoE buff. This is more for damage, but again, you're not looking really to deal damage with the bow. Like if you're a bow main, yes, but this for the fighter is more like a super weapon. For stamina, again, sadly, I wish the blocking system was more rewarding than it currently is, because, like, why block when I can, you know, use some stamina, sure, but, like, and again, if I try to block, I cancel my own combos. So yeah, I don't know. Usually the meta was to go with the focus sprint and the graceful reflexes. So again, dodge now has a 5% chance to cleanse, debuff, really strong. regen 5 stamina upon successful dodging an incoming attack. For me, it makes no sense. You're already getting rewarded by reducing damage, but it gives you stamina back so you have, again, more extra insane mobility. Dodging while at maximum stamina triggers an evasive maneuver, preventing dodge evasion's bonus from being consumed by incoming hits. Like, bro, this is absolutely insane. Honestly, it's absolutely insane. So, I don't know, I think the hypermobility needs to address, and I think the bow meta, again, I think the solution honestly is gonna end up being that you aim manually the bow, so there's a chance for you to miss shots, and it's not as easy as I target something, I press E, all my or like literally all my arrows are landing on the enemy, and it's extremely easy to proc the weapon skills with the bow, and extremely hard in PvP to do with the with the greatsword. So yeah, hope this was helpful. Rather than fully grind characters like I did the first time I played this, I'm gonna try to focus more on testing different classes. I might make more guys like this one if you enjoyed it, and yeah, catch you in the next one.